I gotta do the gallery view and over here. Okay. Gallery view. Got it. All right. Yeah, it looks like that should get this going. All right. Well, welcome everyone to the first card meeting of 2025. This is a regular monthly meeting, so we won't have a lot of, or if any, EGLE participants, but we have an update from Chris at EGLE that I will share at the appropriate time. And just to remind everybody, this meeting is being recorded. It will be posted up on YouTube by the end of the evening. And did I introduce myself? I'm Roger Rayle, Chair of CARD and Chair of Saw Residents for Safe Water, and I'm in my 31st year as a citizen volunteer watching over the Gelman 1,4-dioxane contamination. So let me share the screen. So here's the agenda for the meeting. I'm going to turn it over now to Beth for, oh, by the way, the best way to view things is up in the upper right-hand corner on most computers, there's a view button on your Zoom. And I prefer to use gallery view so that you can see everyone who's talking. When there's a specific person talking, you might switch it to individual view later. But when I record things, I record on gallery view for most part, so you can see all the reactions to comments as they're being made. So with that, I'll turn it over to Beth for approval of the minutes, and let me make sure I get the minutes up here.
Thank you, Roger. And I'm Beth Collins, the secretary. And I did the December minutes were attached to the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the December minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any concerns or changes or anything, speak up now. If not, the minutes are approved. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
And I'll turn it over now to Rita Loch-Caruso, who's going to moderate for us tonight. Thank you, Rita.
Turn your mic on, Rita.
Okay, see, I already screwed up.
No, you didn't screw up.
Yeah, I did. I muted it just before Beth was doing the minutes. Anyway, I'm the substitute. So just hang with me and let's get through this meeting here. Our first item on the agenda is an update from the US EPA. Do we have a representative from the EPA here for an update?
I don't think so this month.
It doesn't look like it. Does anyone have any comments about any of those items listed under item 3A for the Superfund site designation? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to item B, which is Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. This team, and are there any reports from Congresswoman Debbie Dingell's office?
Yeah, hi everyone.
Hi, Georgia.
Hi, nice to see you all. Sorry, I feel like my computer's at a very strange angle, but I think you can see me and hear me. My Wi-Fi is bad, so please let me know if I cut out or anything. Yeah, so I just wanted to everyone's attention to the fact that EPA, not on the official site listing on the website, but on, what is this called, where they put the cumulative information, did provide what isn't exactly an update, but basically a maintenance of the same update that they're still working through, evaluating and generating a response document for the public comment period. I did notice that the remedial project manager is identified with the site contacts for the future NPL listing. So if folks weren't familiar with that individual, he is also listed on this site now. And I'll just copy the direct link that I'm talking about right in the chat. And again, this is not information that folks weren't aware of before, but I think that as the springtime nears, it is good to note what EPA staff folks could expect to be working on this site and who is assigned to working in community engagement. So yes. Oh, and what's being shared is exactly what I was just referencing. So it's, they updated it December 2024. It's the same information we had before.
This one here?
Doing public comment. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that folks saw that, especially for site contacts, since before the contacts they were listing publicly were slightly different. So
is this the page? Is this the page you were on?
Yeah.
Yep, the same one. So again, not a ton of information. Just wanted to push people to that only because the site that we're typically checking on, the full formal site on EPA site is not updated with that for whatever reason. So, but this information is.
On SRSW, we have 2 links to the Superfund. This one, the second one here that's a little bit bolder. Mm-hmm. And this was the other one that you might be referring to that's not always updated.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, just wanted to make sure folks saw that. And our office also reached out to the remedial project manager that was assigned just to make sure that there's, a clear line of communication between folks. And of course, as soon as we learn more, getting into the spring, then we'll be sure to communicate that. But that's it. Nothing tangible per se. Just wanted to make sure that everyone saw that too.
Good. Great. Thanks. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Georgia? Okay. Hearing none, seeing no hands raised.
Thanks, Georgia.
Yeah, thank you very much. And thank you to Congresswoman Dingell for her continued diligence and support for cleaning up this contamination.
Indeed. Thank you.
Is Dan Bicknell on the call?
Yeah, I talked to him earlier. He wasn't really planning on attending, but he did send out an update to the card core group that everyone should have received that about the drain permit conflicts.
Does anyone want to do a quick comment on that or update or anything?
It'll be item 4F.
Okay. Okay. Then I guess we can move on to the EGLE updates. And Roger, you said that you had an update from Chris?
I do. And let me see if I can get to it. There's 3 parts to it. Oh, that's not it. That's not it. One of them is a Word document. Let me see if that's the one I want to go to. Yeah, here we go. I'll try to make that a little bigger so you can see it better. Zoom. Let's make it
page width. Do you have that? Yeah, page width on the top of the second
column. That's a quick way to do it. Okay. Well, that's too big.
Well, I think it's great. I think it's great.
I can look at it on my second screen. I can read it better. I'm too close. All right. So I don't know if these are all the items that are listed there in the agenda, but anyway, the new draft monitoring plans, nothing to report. Sampling results from last surface water sampling. In late November, the map, I have a map here I can show you if I can get back to the other thing now. Make this a little smaller so I can see the other. I'll come back to this in a minute.
So
There's a
did,
map that relates to this. And then item C for the western area, there's nothing for the Gelman plan for the western area, nothing new to report. Nothing new to report on municipal water hookup plan contingency. And on item E, EGLE expects a submission of the feasibility study of a remediation plan this month on the 14th. So we'll have to wait for next card meeting to review that. And then as far as the MS4 violation and Washington County Water Resources EGLE enforcing the elimination of the illicit discharge in Allen Creek, nothing to report. And that's the one that Dan Bicknell has sent out a review of where that stands, bouncing around in EGLE to deal with that, and also that it's really a conflict between the two, MTDS and MS4, so that has to be worked out with EGLE and maybe with the courts. I'll come back to that if there's any questions. New exploration of Water Resource Division permitting illicit discharge in Allen Creek within a PDS, nothing to report. That relates back to that same item. And then work plan for Allen Creek drain system, and there's a map of sampling results. So let me get to those two maps. I think they're now in PDF. Well, this one, here's the surface water sampling results. So you can see that we've had single digit and double digit results in different places in the drain. I'll update this on my Google Earth mashups once I do the new year one. Nothing really too surprising, other than maybe continue to have double digit amounts in surface water in the third sister lake, right next to the Gelman property.
well, Roger, the last year there is 2023. On this map. Wait a minute. Oh, wait a minute. My link took me to a different map than your link.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well,
yeah, I clicked on the link in the agenda, and it took
well,
me
that
to
might be an old one. I didn't look at the agenda to correct it, so I'll
okay.
correct that before we
Okay,
post
I
it.
see. Yeah, no, I do see it's 2024. What you're
Thanks for
showing
pointing
us.
that out. I didn't notice that.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of the things when we got different information coming from different people, getting it all coordinated. It's important to point out issues like that so we can update it before it goes into the official record.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Now let's see what else we got. I think there's another document here. Yeah, here's the other document he sent related. This is the to EGLE from Gelman, basically. Of what they're going to. No, this is from to Jim Brody from EGLE. I'm sorry. For the Eastern Plan. And I haven't had a chance to read this thoroughly yet, but I'll make sure it gets in the link to the agenda. I only got this a little while before the meeting today, so I didn't have a chance to go in and plug it in. So we'll expect some comments on this for next month.
Roger,
Mm-hmm.
on the map, could you point out the main part of Allen Creek? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, it doesn't show on the map. He just has the
Okay.
streets here.
I'm confused.
Let me see. I mean, I could.
You're about right. The way where your arrow went.
Yeah, it's basically.
And then there's branches in the west.
Yeah, there's a lot of pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Where there's not a surface water body. Like here's surface water body, and of course the Honey Creek tributary and Huron River. But anything over here is going to be Allen
right.
Creek, and it's labeled
Yeah.
Allen Creek, so
Yeah.
Okay.
this pretty much tells where the routine sample points have been for Allen Creek. The one thing they don't have on this map, I'm a little surprised because it's in the database now, is at the discharge point of Allen Creek.
Yeah.
I'll mention that to Chris, but it's right about here. And it's over 1 part per billion. It's going into the Huron River downstream of the dam there. So there's a little bit of work we have to do on this.
Yeah, that's concerning.
I mean, I guess the good news is there's non-detect in the first and second sister lake. There's non-detect in the Arbor Landing Pond. That's not changed. The only time we had detected levels in the first sister lake was when Weber's was discharging from their non-recirculating heat pump. And it got into first sister lake for several months, up to 22 parts per billion. And that caused a lot of concern until we realized, oh, that was a discharge that nobody knew about. So, but it tells you that the amount of water going, amount of dioxin going into that non-recirculating heat pump at Weber's must have been higher than 22 parts per billion in order to get 22 parts per billion into the first sister lake. And of course, that well was shut down. So we don't really have any data of what's going on at the Weber's location. We've never, as far as I know, never seen any, is that hundreds of parts per billion or thousands of parts per billion that was at the Weber's heat pump. And that went on for quite a while before it was discovered. Fortunately, we haven't had any big surprises like that recently. We had several dozen little surprises about the homeowner wells that have been contaminated. But any other questions on this map before I go on?
Yeah, I would like to make a
Beth,
comment.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for presenting that. I wonder if we can get a copy of that map somehow. I didn't get one. I don't know if it just came out or what.
I haven't uploaded it yet to share it, but I will.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay,
even
great.
before the meeting's over.
Oh, great. So I just noticed some of the numbers here. It has, pardon?
It's going up.
Yeah, well,
Several of the storm grades.
yeah. So one is at Slauson Middle School, which is really disturbing. That is, it's right next to the school. They have a lot of groundwater, just like a lot of places down in that area where you have seeps coming out of the hillsides and such. And we still have, hits in the west.
Where is Slauson on here? It's right behind the Hannah Nature Center.
It
No.
shows there's a label. There's a label at the 8th Street, and there's 2 lines going off of that dot. Do you see 8th Street listed? Yeah, down. Right there. That's
Oh, there.
8th
That
Street.
red dot, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that points to Slauson Middle School there.
Yeah, that's high. 22 parts per billion is pretty high there.
So the other one next to it to the right is also 8th Street, but that's in the street
Right.
drain. Whereas the other one is right at the curb. And there's he actually popped the lid off the drain, and you could just see a whole lot of water rushing through that drain there, just like we see in West Park. So there's a lot of water close to the surface, groundwater, that is careening through the west side. And one of the big concerns the Allen's Creek group has, and I think CARD too, to some extent, is that we could have contamination in people's basements, schools, whatever buildings are in the way. And I don't really see much concern about that, unfortunately, either the city or the state or whatever. And I think it's a real issue because over the years, the last 35 years, we've been trying to deal with the Allen's Creek issues. And there's a lot of wet basements on the west side, especially down, West Park and beyond towards the east. And there's a real concern about, the potential exposure that could happen. And, Bob Bailey and Rita put together an article that talks about exposures potentially, coming into the basement, exposing the homeowners, and published in a international journal, very well respected.
Yeah, and Bob's figure on what amount should be allowed was tightened down to 100 parts per billion versus 280, as I recall.
Well, he
And
had two.
22 is starting to get pretty close to that. If you think another few, this happened in 4 years.
Yeah.
So, it could get, if it quadruples again in 4 years, for 8 years, then we're going to have a problem with the discharge point into the Huron River.
Well, one thing that did strike me very important was EPA told me that finding these seeps and the leak, the water flowing through the West Park area and the Slauson Middle School really got their attention and was one of the main reasons why they decided to go ahead and pick up EPA Superfund for this site, for the whole Gelman site.
Yeah.
They're very concerned about this, and I think it's totally, appropriate that they have concerns, and these numbers in a lot of places are still going up, they're not going down. And it's unfortunate that there's no real effort to stop the flow through the drain system and into the groundwater that's very close to the surface on the west side.
Well, I think what they're saying is that the stormwater drain is being used as a proxy
Right.
for shallow groundwater. That's what EGLE has said point blank and some of our meetings. The other thing I'd like to point out is the pond. The pond was non-detect for 4 years,
Right.
and then in 2021 they detected it, and it's been over 1, and now it's at 2.2. It's not going down, and
The West Park Pond.
absolutely,
Right.
Yep. And I think that's a real concern. There it is. It's right at the surface.
You'll also look at this 22
Yes,
here at West
I did.
Park and the 22 down here at the storm grate. So these are not right next to each other.
No.
So it could be a bigger area than what we've been looking at so far.
And what Roger has said in the past is, he has a map that shows artesianing on the right part of that map. And there's we have, Roger put together a map about, there it is, in green.
Yeah, these are the near surface groundwater in this light green area here.
There's probably hundreds of houses in there. And businesses,
No. Okay, any other comments about this data that Roger has shown us?
Beth has her hands, and so does
Does Beth? Oh, thank you.
Beth and Kathy.
Beth, I think if I understand right, you're next.
Thank you. So like we've said before, that the concentrations are getting higher in a lot of places. It's moving. And the court decisions aren't going to slow down the movement. This waiting for the EPA isn't going to slow down the movement. So nobody seems to do anything about it. It's crazy. I'm baffled reading Dan Bicknell's letter today. I totally agree 100%. And Kathy, your response, and I just can't figure out why nobody's hair is on fire.
My hair is on fire. Her hair is on fire.
Yeah. Thanks, Beth.
We have a new judge that we're going to have to deal with.
So wait a minute, was Kathy Griswold or Glenn Hendricks next?
I think I'm next, and I'll try to be quick.
Yeah, Glenn's hand. Oh, there you go. Yeah, okay, Kathy, go ahead.
I really appreciate everything that Roger's done, everything that Dan Bicknell's done, and Dan really summarized the issue regarding the MS4 permit, and nothing is being done. My hair is on fire, and I'm not just going to sit here and do nothing in 2025. I did receive a private message from Steve Brown, and he shared the Dan Bicknell analysis report and my response with both Wolfpack and the Ann Arbor Environmental Commission, and is planning to advocate that they be added as goals for 2025. And I think that, I know we're all exhausted by this, but I think we have to upgrade our advocacy game and maybe reach out to MLive or the Michigan Daily again. And quite frankly, why am I working so hard and funding Democratic candidates at the state and local level if they can't get the job done? I mean, there's a lot of talk, but the Republicans just say no and they don't waste our time. So that's my attitude as of January 2025. Thank you.
Okay. I think if people are interested in forming advocacy group, it's something for us to really take seriously. It's something we could do. Glenn?
Thanks. I noticed that some of the concentrations in the unnamed tributary to the west and Little Lake actually exceed their NPDES permit limit, which I think is 5 parts per billion.
Where is that? Let's see.
The unnamed tributary fall upstream.
Oh, I see it. I see
and
it.
then Little Lake.
Actually, Glenn, the limit is 7.
It is 7. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're in. Okay. Well, then that's about
And
where they are.
when early in the days, we advocated when they wanted to discharge 60 to 100 parts per billion. The citizens rose up at that time, back in 93, 95, and said, no, the standard used to be 3 parts per billion. So we said, you got to discharge between 0 and 3 parts per billion, because we figured if you shoot for 3, they had to, if we had a 3 as a limit, then they would have to shoot for 0 in order to meet that most of the time. And of course, that got loosened through the Engler administration, and we got stuck with 85 for a long time, and then
right, I recall.
Now it's back down to 7.2 as the cleanup standard, but 7 is in the permit. But had 3 been in there, what we first advocated for, all of those numbers would have been lower, because they were able to treat the non-detect less than 1, but they weren't required to. So we're stuck with it. But we don't have to be stuck with it, because 7.2 is a lot better than 85, but it's not as good as what the EPA standard of 3.5 for 1 in 100,000 cancer risk. And it's certainly not as good as the EPA 0.35 for 1 in a million cancer risk, which what Michigan used to have prior to 1995. So yeah, there's some background there that we need to make sure everybody's understanding of, and we can get back to that, maybe not the next 4 years nationally, but in Michigan, we should be able to do some things.
Thank you.
Okay. Kathy Knoll.
Yeah, I had a question, Roger. I thought with the NPDES permitting, there were averages that were allowed to be used over, I don't know, 7-day span or a 10-day span. Could you comment on that? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, the 7 is with I forget if it's a daily average or weekly average, but
yeah,
or a monthly average. But and we get a report every month that they've been under that, except for a few years they were in violation just barely. But again, the fact that it's averaging is a better way to do it rather than a single exception. But some of the single exceptions they had in the early days were triple digits. It wasn't even close, but they were just getting used to discharging from the Corps at that point. So they're doing better on the average, but we don't get individual violations like we used to. That changed with one of the one of the changes in the consent judgment.
Okay. Great. Any other questions or comments? Lots of good discussion here about what's going on with the detections.
Should I go back to the?
Do you want to?
See, did we cover the thing I didn't? So I guess what I need to do is share the map that we just had.
Yeah, because the link in the agenda was for
Yeah,
the old map.
that's really my fault. I didn't go
That's
back and check that. And then, like I said, I just got the thing from Chris.
Yeah, the letter would be great. Yeah.
This morning after lunch. And then the report from EGLE to Gelman. This document, I can also share that, put that in the link too.
I think a lot of people would like to see that. I think that would be great.
Yeah. And it's December 19th, so it's already a couple of weeks old.
Yeah, but the holidays. So
yeah, I wasn't even here for a good part of that.
All right. Well, it sounds like we've covered the waterfront there.
I think that's everything on Chris this year. Yeah, the MS4 violation thing, it's going to require some work, as everybody's mentioned already. Get more people involved and get the right thing to happen.
Yeah, I think I didn't read it carefully, but my impression was that it was a detailed summary with the conclusion that well, I'm not even sure what the conclusion was. Did somebody have it? I don't have it. Anyway, okay, we can move on. Should we go on to the old business?
I just make one more comment on this before we move on. That there's an effort to try and get a discussion with the new Water Resources Commissioner. So hopefully some of us will be able to get together and talk to her and try and get her feelings and trying to educate her. So that Driscoll is and James Demore contacted her originally way back. And I'd like to thank James for doing that. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, this is cutting ahead on the agenda a little bit in terms of the Allen's Creek subcommittee. But also I did connect with, as Vince mentioned, with Gretchen last weekend. We have not set a date for a meeting, but indeed a number of us will be meeting sometime soon. I think it's good that we loop her in, have her be invited to the two-card meetings. Certainly someone from her office. Also, this issue is going to be discussed, I'm certain. So for those of you who have contacted me about this, I will let you know in the very near future. I should be connected with her shortly. I have not as of today.
Yeah, I'll have more to say on that when we get down to the executive board item.
Great. Thanks for bringing that up, and thanks, James, for that, taking that initiative. So moving on to Washtenaw County, do we have any updates? I see Youssef on the agenda. I'm not sure if Youssef is.
There's nobody from the county with us, no staff today either. Like
I
Chris.
see. Okay. All right. So does anybody have any information about county activities worth bringing up here at this time?
I don't think anything has happened since last month.
Okay, let's move on. Ann Arbor Township, any updates? Hearing none. Scioto Township, Kathy?
No updates.
Okay. Anyone else can
This is
chime
why
in
I thought
about
this meeting
SIA.
might go quicker, because there's not a whole lot happening in December usually.
Yeah, well, December is December, right? Everybody's got things going on. How about the city of Ann Arbor? Is Patty or Aaron on the call? Well,
Hi, no updates.
hi, Aaron.
Hi.
Yeah. Okay, no updates, huh? Okay.
What's on the agenda though for you guys? Anything coming up that we need to think about for next month?
Regarding Gelman,
Yeah.
nothing comes to mind.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I saw Patty on here too. She can chime in if she has anything, but I'll let you know if something slipped my mind.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good to see you briefly there, Patty.
Yeah, Patty had trouble with her audio too, she told me. So she probably can just wave.
Yes, she's
She good now. I couldn't hear at the beginning, so people were
good
talking.
to see your face.
But we just wondering if you had any updates, if you knew of any plans or even discussions for plans for city activity involving the Gelman contamination monitoring or
Not this month.
okay. All right. Well, I think
let me just make a comment if I could real quick. I really wish the city would get more active and show concern about exposures that could happen in the West Park area or the west side of the city. With all the wet basements, it just seems like inevitable that this will start percolating into basements. And that's not something we want to see happen. So hopefully, the city and the state and the county would work together and try and present that as a real concern, and that we need to see some action and move forward on it instead of just dragging our feet for all these months and years. So thank you.
Actually, I have a question relating for the city. Now that the building across from the Y is being torn down, is there any plans for new monitoring of that area before something gets built?
I know there are monitoring wells on that site. I don't know that there are plans for additional monitoring. Patty, do you have any?
This
Is this 415? Sorry, or
yeah,
okay.
415 West Washington. Yeah, as you guys all probably know, there was a developer that was in the works and then that fell through. So there are monitoring wells out there that could be sampled. They have been sampled in the past for 1,4-dioxane as recently as I think 2023, and there were no detections. I don't think we did any sampling there last year. But I mean, it's a good thought. It's definitely something to keep in mind. Those wells are still there.
I recall the sampling that was done when Matt Nod was in charge at the city, at the Eaton site.
Yes. Yeah.
And so these are wells similar to what went on there at the Eaton site, which is, of course, the old Eaton industrial facility there that's now a residential complex. So are these monitoring wells similar to those Eaton well sites? I think the Eaton wells are still there. I don't know if
they are
sampled regularly.
Yep.
We only have sampling from a certain short period back when that first was brought up. So I'm wondering if those sample results should someday be archived in with all the rest of the sample results that we have.
Yeah, we do have some data. I think for some period of time they were providing information to Matt when he was still here. I think I have really old data. I'm not sure that Eaton still provides that data, but it might be available through FOIA with the state because they're still actively monitoring that site. And there are the plumes there are in various aquifers, so there's different depths. They're not quite the same as 415. 415 is all shallow, like up to 20 feet. But I know there are much deeper wells at Eaton.
I'd really like to see the results of, how deep the wells are and what the results were for the archives, because we have that for the Eaton, for those earlier periods. I didn't know that they were still being sampled regularly.
Yeah, that's still a site that under 201 for the state. So I do have some data I can probably share with you, Roger, but I don't know like some reports that I got through FOIA that I can share with you.
Yeah, just things that would help fill in the gaps of, where's sampling being done, and what to know that there's non-detect there is important.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know that they're
information.
They're sampling VOCs, and I don't think 1,4-dioxane is in the scan they're using. They definitely wouldn't be using, the methods that we'd be using. So
522.
Yeah.
Okay, good information. Thanks.
Can I make a comment?
You. Sure.
So I just want to, I don't know, maybe some people don't realize it, but there's been some real concern over by the Eaton site, or the camera factory was, I forget the name of that, but there was Argus, yeah.
Argus, right.
There's a lot of contamination that homeowners are concerned about, and whether their basements are getting exposed or not. They've even gone around and put up signs, please clean this up, as individual residents in the area. And it is percolating, towards the river like everything else. And I'm not sure what the current status is of that. If it's, I know there's demolitioning the building on Washington across from the Y. And I'm glad to see that work is being done. But there is some concerns by several homeowners who've talked to me and others about potential exposure from Argus from years of solvent use or whatever. They have found, some nasty chemicals moving through the aquifer. That's something we need to pay attention to and deal with. Thanks.
What street? Let's see. Argus is on Washington and something, right?
Oh, I don't think it's on Washington.
It's on Williams. It's on Williams. On Williams between 3rd and 4th.
Williams between 3rd and 4th. So it's way down here. Somewhere. Between 3rd and 4th. Is that still a university building?
Yep.
Because I was there when we had a contract with the university in that building.
Yeah, it's where Michigan Public is.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't Michigan Public. It was Michigan Media.
Yeah, they're still there too.
What Eleanor is saying, that's where Michigan Public is there now.
Yeah, they've been there since the 40s.
Since the 40s. And I'd also just like to point out to people and thank Eleanor for being here as a media representative from Michigan Public. Yay!
Yes, thank you.
So on the Argus site, I do know the state is doing active indoor air sampling of adjacent properties. I was going to try to quickly look up on RIDE and see if that information is public, but I do know that they are doing active sampling, and Kristen with the county should have up-to-date information on that.
Does Argus still have their museum there?
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should move it along a little bit.
Argus C3 was one of the better.
I know, but
35 millimeter cameras.
We're starting to go down memory lane, and I think maybe we can,
All right. So we're at City of Ann Arbor. You're all done there, huh?
Yeah. Down to the executive board. The first item is any updates on the Yale Superfund Research Program Center. And I have been in contact and had several discussions with them. I wouldn't say that anything fruitful yet, although we did see the results from Heather's survey. She shared the data, and that was very welcomed that she did that. And also turns out that the center is very excited about Heather. I would say excited maybe is an overstatement, but they very much liked Heather's work, and I think they're going to they're trying to incorporate Heather into the center more officially. They have very limited funds right now. The things are getting slashed. So one thing I did learn, which I think people might find of interest, is that it is the opinion of the administrator for the Yale Center, and the administrators are very well connected for those centers. They meet with the higher ups of EPA all the time to find out about the budgets and this and that. And what I was told is that it is true that the Superfund program overall did well under Trump's first term. However, not all Superfund sites did well. It was very selective. And so sites that were in blue states or in swing states got, kept their funding or got an increase in support for cleaning up their sites. Whereas, sites in red states and in swing states got an increase in funding or maintained their support under the first term of Trump, whereas sites in the blue states got reduced funding. And so I think we do need to kind of keep an eye on that and not put on rose-colored glasses. And just because it was overall okay, it wasn't necessarily okay for everyone. So I thought that was interesting, and I think that's all. They're writing a review, and they asked me if Gelman was using any novel cleanup technologies, and I said, and I mentioned the remediation reactors with the bioremediation as a possibility, and I don't know if they're going to contact the students or not. I said it was more of a student project, but I couldn't think of anything. So if I'm off on that, let me know. All right, so I guess that's it for Yale. Moving on. The subcommittee on the Allens Creek MS4 violation, we've talked about this a lot already, but James and Roger, do you have anything you'd like to add or augment our prior discussions on this?
Well, I think we need to, using what Dan just sent as a summary, to make sure we all understand that so we can give Gretchen a good update when we meet with her sometime next week. And understand that she probably doesn't have a lot to say about this because it's tied up with EGLE's two departments. And,
well, but EGLE kept saying it was a county issue.
Yeah, well, there you go again.
Yeah, I know. So I think
it's complicated, and I don't know enough about it myself. The ins and outs. How these two different programs interact. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for communicating that and achieving a proper solution. But I'll let the other commenters weigh in on this.
Okay, Beth, you have something you want to add?
Thank you. Roger, when you do get a good email for Gretchen Driscoll, will you add her to the card core list?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
James, I think, is on top of that.
Okay.
Great idea.
Not much to
let
add.
me know, or you let me or Roger know her email.
Absolutely.
So invite her. Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. And absolutely we'll be discussing this issue. If nothing else, we should be at least have some education a little bit. Certainly she's not been around. She's been around in terms of the process a little bit, but still in terms of building a new relationship and education, I think is important.
Okay, thanks. Vince?
Yeah, I think, if EPA gets involved, which we're hoping they do, a lot of this will go away and they'll just start working on it using Donaher's money instead of state money and county money and city money. But I think, that hopefully we'll get EPA involved. I don't know if anybody has any information on that, where they're at, what potential startup could be. That would be worth sharing it if it was available somewhere. But I think, yeah, we need to do something before EPA, if it's going to take them a while. When they get involved, I'm sure they'll deal with it, but it could be a while.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Like Roger said, it's kind of everybody keeps kicking the ball over to the other team.
Well, the EPA, Superfund's moving ahead.
Yes.
We've heard
but
that
are they,
over and over again.
Right. But specifically for the MS4, I don't know. The other thing I would say is I have a little bit of a rebellion against the notion that we just need to educate Gretchen Driscoll.
Mm-hmm.
And my rebellion is simple. I mean, I was an educator and I went into education, and I wanted to teach particularly at a public university because I really thought that education was the solution. But I don't think that anymore.
Now that you're retired?
No, it happened decades ago, where I realized that it takes more than knowledge,
Oh,
and
yes.
it takes more than being right, and more than educating the participants in order to effect change. And so I really think that what Kathy Griswold said about advocacy is something to kind of think about, and just, I don't have an answer for it, but I think that I think education's important, but I think we need more than that. Kathy, I see your hand popped up.
Yes, we lack the political will at the state level, at the county level, at the city level, and fear is a great motivator. And maybe it's going to take some fear at this point to motivate people into action. So, especially if we have dioxane in a drain next to a school, and we're not even talking about it, we being the greater community, then shame on us. Because I run into people in the second ward who are concerned about the dioxane plume, and we're on the other side of town.
Okay.
And we need a critical mass in order to develop some political will.
Right.
We need to think of a strategy. I don't have the answer, but I think.
Well, I think one thing important is we tried to get a system passed through the voters to try and take some of the money out of politics. And I think that's one of our big problems, is that these corporations are buying our politicians and blocking efforts. And they just spread the money around. It's peanuts to the major contributors. They could carry, it's like chump change for them. But then we have these politicians who take the money and think it's great and wonderful, and that they want more money, and so they cozy up to the politicians more, or to the developers, or
corporations are people, but they're not water-based people.
They're not people.
They're not water-based organisms.
Yeah.
So we could keep working on
Well,
getting money out of politics. I think that would make a big difference, but it's going to be a hard effort, as you saw in the last election.
Yeah.
It lost 2-1, so that's unfortunate. But there's
And,
talk of doing something different and better.
yeah. And speaking of politics, the next item was a sad story. It has a sad story ending right now. James, you want to talk about what happened with polluter pay, polluter accountability bills?
Yeah. Vince, I think it's also one last thing before I go divulge the news is that I think it's an issue of communication. It is, I think, what happened locally reflects national politics. I think it's lack of really a communication structure to reach citizens. I think the lack of a strong local newspaper, a lack of really a central town hall in terms of media, it's going to be an ongoing discussion. It's only beyond the scope of our group, but it's something that I think human people involved in this group and individual citizens to think about in the days moving forward. In terms of what happened, I think everybody on Cardcore got some email blasts from me regarding the polluter pay bill. there was a slight chance that it could have been taken up in the lame duck session. Unfortunately, there wasn't a hearing scheduled in the House, but I have to give kudos to our local reps, Jeff Irwin and Jason Morgan, in terms of pushing the legislation. I have to give Jeff Irwin a lot of credit for getting the bill passed in the Senate. That gave him more incentive to have it happen in the House. But what happened in the House in the last days of lame duck session was disastrous, I think, for not just Plume's pay, but for a lot of bills. It was a tight majority in the House between only 56 Dems versus 54 Republicans. And the problem is, just as it is on the federal level, if you're the majority party, you do not necessarily have the votes. We had a couple representatives that were either eyeing their next job, or one representative who is currently going to serve another term in Detroit, Karen Whitsett, who refused to show up at the Capitol. Or she was show up on the floor, but was even caucusing with Minority Leader Matt Hall and preventing legislation from being passed. Representative Whitsett's considering a city council bid in Detroit. This goes back to the thing that some, as what Kathy said, just because they have a D behind the name doesn't mean they have other interests on their agenda, and that's what happened. To make a long story short, despite having the bill passed in the Senate, the bill died in the House as no floor votes were taken. The Republicans refused to show up. And consequently, they didn't have a quorum. No legislation happened. And the net result is, although this Plume's pay bill would have been a wonderful opportunity to rectify some of the problems we've been talking about, it didn't happen. Yeah. The Republicans took over in the next legislature coming up, and they now have a majority. The Senate might pass Plume's pay, but there simply haven't been the votes in the House. There have been no Republicans showing any interest in moving this legislation forward. So I think it's going to be unlikely that we're going to see Plume's pay happen in the next legislature. We can hope against hope, possibly something can happen, but it is unlikely. So onward we look in terms of for remedies elsewhere.
Midterm elections.
Yep.
Thank you for working on it, James. It was very important to try, and the push, I think, at least got it passed in the Senate. That was encouraging. But the only thing that really matters, of course, is seeing the laws changed. So our work continues.
Grand opportunity lost, for sure.
Yeah. Yes. Disappointing. Okay. Are there any other issues from members of the executive board?
We need to think about replacing some of the members, some of the board members, like me, somebody to supplement what we're doing, and of course with others as well. So think about that, everybody who's watching. We need people to step up and take over. And Beth, you're doing a super job remotely. I think we could all get by working remotely if we had to. But there's, I don't really want to replace you. But you're so far away. But
I'll pass the torch on, but because it is hard, like with the political end, especially, and new
being on the ground at different meetings and things and meeting people in town and stuff. Yeah. But I hope you, even if we do partially replace you, I hope you still are in the loop, because you have such a lot of institutional knowledge and skills that we need to we need to appreciate that and keep that going forward, because without you, I don't think we would have gotten this far.
Oh, well, thank you. Kind words. But yes, if anyone wants to take on secretary duties, please reach out.
It's so many days of the month, right?
And it's only, yeah, one or two.
So, I mean,
It's not that many. I don't mind. It's just,
I'm
I
looking at
do
all
feel
the
a little,
retired people on the screen here. Let me
I
think.
feel kind of far away and out of it, but.
Yeah, and it's not like you're going to go away. I want to get a commitment from you. You're going to be around to help anybody who takes over whatever part of the job you want to give up.
For sure.
I would encourage someone, especially like, if you're new, if you're haven't been that active maybe, and you see this as an opportunity, it would be helpful. I personally am just terrible at the days will go by and deadlines will go by and I'll miss them. We need somebody who's more organized than me. But I think it's a good opportunity to get involved with it. Yeah, I think CART is a pretty good group, I see a hand up. James, you're volunteering?
Yeah, I'm not volunteering for anything. I just am just simply going to say, I would encourage the executive board to maybe have a discussion about this in the near future.
Sure.
And maybe we can talk about this separately offline.
Yes, we can have an executive board meeting. Good idea.
I think that would be appropriate.
All right. So we just have to remember to set one up. All right. So any other issues about the executive board, from the executive board? Thank you for all of your participation and work on this. So I think we are now at the chair update. Roger?
Yep. Well, this should go pretty quick. Let me change the scale on this recording so you can see it better. I got the final December sampling results from Gelman. I get a summary Excel spreadsheet every month. And it takes some massaging to get the data off of it to compare it. But these are the highest ever results for these wells in 2024, as of 2024. So all of these wells had their highest ever readings in 2024. Well, of course, things like TW 26 and 27 had their highest ever readings because that's when they were first sampled. And they might have gone down a little bit since then, but 1900 parts per billion at the core is still a lot. These other monitoring wells and the Allen Crane, the outfall at Allen drain, I think I said, I misspoke earlier. I said it was a 1 something. Well, it's actually 3.6 parts per billion at the highest ever this year, going into the Huron River from the Allen Creek. So if you go back to this map of surface water sampling, the ones that are closest to the river should be a little bit higher than 3.6. And they are 10, 5.6. This one's not the closest to the river, but this one up gradient and this one up gradient both are. And that's just what's feeding into the drain. We don't know if there are some plumes that have gotten to the river yet going east. But having the data gives us some indication of what's going on. These other wells, I'll go to the Google Earth mashup here. These tend to be these ones that are, you see all the white donuts, white and gray donuts. These are the highest ever readings for the last several years, not counting 2024. Some of these are included in 2024. They continue to go up. And they tend to be on the north side and the east side. But occasionally there's some elsewhere. Over here in the homeowner well over here. And these monitoring wells that Gelman put in on the west side, MW139S, for instance. And the new one that they put in, MW148. I don't have a reading posted for that, but that was highest ever because it was about 2 parts per billion. So that supports the premise that this contamination up here in these homeowner wells, and of course, these aren't in the database yet. These would all be added to that list I just showed you. This covers several years from 2021 to 2024. These are people drinking this water. It's in their drinking water. They add up to 2 parts per billion. And this wasn't discovered until the township went out and did the sampling. And some of these are more than a mile north of where the supposed edge of the plume was. So this is one offshoot that we know about. Now, there've been sampling, a lot of sampling, and maybe this is the only offshoot. So here's the other non-detects that the state had. And if I zoom up here, these are the non-detects that SIO had earlier. So maybe we got them all, because maybe the contamination only follows these ancestral stream beds underneath where we see surface water tributaries now. So that this is all these hits are in that we have well data for are within a 50 or 60 foot span of elevation. And that's 40 to 60 feet below the surface of the river. So when it reaches the river, it probably won't vent directly to the river. It'll probably meander along with the river and then maybe vent down closer to where the Ann Arbor intakes are. Actually, do we still have the county? Patty, do you know how deep the intake is at the Barton Pond?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Is it nearer the surface or is it deeper?
I think it's deeper.
Yeah, so it may, if it's that deep, it may have a better chance of hitting from coming up in Barton Pond than coming up in the river. Something to think about. So anyway, again, the highs there, and of course, all of the homeowner well information that we know we've found over the years. And there may be other offshoots. We know there's an offshoot here at Elizabeth that we don't know exactly where that's coming from. This one home next to the Knights of Columbus property, former Knights of Columbus property, had very high concentrations, but 3, I think. And this one well over here that's about as shallow as my well and about as close to the creek as my well is up here. And they had detectable levels of dioxin. We don't know if it's from discharge to the creek or if it's from the plume meandering that way or both. So these are just ones we found in the last few years, offshoots. When I ran into former environmental coordinator for Gelman, Farsad Fatui, before he was let go and left the state, I ran into him at the Stadium Hardware, and talked about these offshoots, and he says, well, there actually might be hundreds of offshoots. I think he was exaggerating, but even if there were tens of offshoots they haven't discovered yet, that's a concern. And we're doing our best to get a handle on this, but I'm still waiting for the data to be put into the database so I can do a better job of this kind of mashup so we can show what's really going on. This one dot over here, of course, is that one hit in Ann Arbor Township. That was 9 parts per billion and was resampled at 1.9. But by the time the state got around to sampling, it was non-detect, and it's been non-detect since. Dioxin was probably really there. Maybe it was a slug of dioxin moving through, but where that slug came from, we don't know. And whether there's other slugs on their way through the neighborhoods, we don't know. We know there are other tributaries that lead to the river. This one is one the city is concerned about, having a monitoring well to kind of detect if anything is heading that way. There's another one or two that are not shown on any of the maps that we have here that are minor surface tributaries. But all along Huron River Drive, there's water venting from the banks. And you'll see places where there's water on the side of the road and there's a culvert, because that's just the way things work in soil in Michigan. It rains, it's going to go down. The aquifers are probably deeper than those. So any rain filling up here is probably diluting what's going into the river from the underground aquifers. Keep that in mind. Anyway, that's about all I have to say on that. I want to do some, in terms of the well sampling, I want to do some summaries for wells that were not sampled recently. When was the last date sampled and what was the parts per billion on that? Are there some wells that are maybe should have more attention paid to? Especially there's abandoned wells that maybe didn't get their last sample, or there's no sampling to replace it. I know there's some in some of the development of the Smith property that were supposed to be replaced that never got replaced. We have some wells that we know have well logs or should have well logs, and we don't have the well logs. If well is abandoned, we want to make sure we have a record of it being properly abandoned. We know there are some wells in the Westover area that were not properly abandoned. That might still be going on. If there's well logs that are lacking basic well information that's not in the database, we should do something to correct that. Like some of these homeowner well samples, there was no well log. And when they went around to sample the wells, they didn't happen to ask the homeowner, do you have a well log that shows how deep your well is? To confirm that it's in the same aquifer that all the other ones are in. There's data that's missing that we could fill in. And this can be done a number of different ways, but it's one of the things I try to pay attention to. There are also wells, we were told several years ago, that any new wells will be drilled to bedrock. That's not always happening. It didn't happen in the marshy area when there were wells put in. There's some other wells that were given exceptions for one reason or another. And that eliminates our understanding of what's going on in those lower layers, those lower aquifers. Some of these wells that had the highest ever readings here, and see if I can point one out here on the map. Take away this 3D plume. By the way, this is the 3D and 2D plumes you see are the 2024 Gelman maps extruded up. So I'll turn those off. And turn on the 2023 plumes. And then I'll turn on the 24 plumes, 2D plumes. You see, it's pretty much the same. There's a little bit of difference at some of the leading edges. But not surprisingly, we don't have any major new offshoots on their maps. They don't have this offshoot here. That's not part of the Gelman. They only model where it's above 4 or 7 parts per billion, but they don't care about if it's 1 or 3 parts per billion in homeowner wells. But they should. We should have a map of where the dioxin really is, where it can be found, and that's what I try to provide. Anyway, one of the wells that was surprising to me that's still going up, I think, was this MW70. That's a really deep well. Look how deep that is. It had its highest ever reading recent years, a couple parts per billion. Why is that significant? Because there's homeowner wells nearby here on this street here. And that's not too far away. These wells could start having hits too. And what's going to happen? Where are they going to get water from? They have to be annexed to the city like the Evergreen area was. Anyway, so this is what we can tell from the data that we get. So those are some of the things I'm going to be working on. Just to review what we covered in prior months. Here's all the data sets that we have relating to the dioxin. Some of these are up to date, some of them are not. It'd be nice if these were all integratively linked so that you don't have to keep opening one data set and open another data set and trying to compare them by hand. So that's another challenge for us. On the other side is EGLE has this system for report input for various permits in order to keep track of communications with the permittee. I covered this a couple months ago, but I'm going to see if we can get a bulk download of all 12, about 11,000 some Gelman files that are in this set. It's in this interchange format that they're public data. You can download it. As when I tried to do it, out of the 11,000, I was only able to download 132 over 2 days because there were a lot of failures with the download. And I know that it's there in knowing how computers work, you could pull out all those about 12,000 files and put them in one file, one zip file, and download the whole thing. And then we would have it. And we compare how many of those files do we already have indexed and named, and how many are new, what kind of new information might be out there related to the Gelman site. And so that's another challenge that I'm going to hopefully work on and get some help with various people. So I'll leave it at that. So we can wrap the meeting early, and anybody has any questions, now's the time.
I guess I have a question. If anybody has gotten any indication where EPA is at on their process and any end point coming or not.
Well,
when I interviewed them a couple months ago, they said they were on schedule, which is usually a year or so since they announced that it's eligible. Georgia may know more.
You're saying that they're expecting to do this and get started in a year?
They're expecting the entire process from when they have the list, when they announce that it's eligible and they close the comment period, to when they make a decision to be a year. So they're looking, it sounded to me like spring this year. But again, they're very reticent to give any specific dates or anything like that, just because it's such a long process.
No, thanks for the info. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Roger. Some really interesting data there. Thanks very much for pulling it together, and especially those highest ever readings information. It's very, very
Yeah, I do that every
enlightening.
year.
Yeah.
This isn't official because I haven't got the database yet for 2024. This is only what I get from the monthly reports.
Yeah. Well,
And it
thanks.
takes me an hour each month to pull together this, and then another couple hours to do this kind of annual thing. But
so I just saw in chat that Georgia from Dingell's office also said that their office has been told spring is a target date for.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing
EPA.
too.
Sorry to interrupt you, Roger.
I gotta look. Where's my share button here? Seems like I should know how to do this by now after all these years.
So I think we're coming towards the last item here, which is does anyone have anything else they'd like to add to this meeting? Wasn't on the agenda, wasn't discussed yet. All right. I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to thank everybody for your continued participation and work and interest, and please keep it up. We don't go, don't get too discouraged. We have each other at least, and I think that is going to offer some opportunities for us, and we just have to keep thinking about it and working the problem. Our next card meeting is going to be an evening meeting again. It will be Tuesday, February the 4th at 6 p.m. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks for moderating.
Everybody.
Rita.
Yeah, thanks, Rita.
Thank you, Rita, for participating.
Thanks, everybody, for participating.
Thanks for everybody showing up.
Yeah, be safe.
Great work.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year, kids. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.